You know, in the super high-stakes world of scientific research, there's this silent crisis that's unfolding in labs all over the globe. And it's not really about the failed experiments or the funding cuts, not at its core. It's about the mental toll it's taking on the researchers themselves. So today, we're going to dive into this really critical issue of academic burnout.
To really get this, let's start with the story. Meet Dr. Elena Vargas, a postdoc in molecular biology. Picture this, it's 2 a.m., and she's just broken. This single moment, it just perfectly captures that breaking point that so many researchers face, where all that passion just gives way to total despair.
So, how on earth does a dream career, something you've worked your whole life for, turn into a complete nightmare? To figure that out, we've got to trace Elena's journey.
Elena started out exactly where she wanted to be. She absolutely lived for the grind, pouring every ounce of herself into her work. Those crazy long hours, they weren't just a job requirement. For her, they were a badge of honor, all fueled by that promise of the next huge breakthrough.
But that relentless pressure, it just started to chip away at her. And it wasn't one big thing, right? It was this slow accumulation of setbacks, another rejected grant, the sheer exhaustion from those never-ending weeks, a cynicism that started to creep in and replace that initial passion. She felt disconnected and, maybe worst of all, she started to feel like a total fraud.
Now, here's the crucial part. Elena's story isn't some rare, isolated incident. What she went through is actually a symptom of a much, much larger systemic problem. You could call it a hidden epidemic in academia. And when you look at the numbers, they are just staggering. Wow. Studies are showing that up to 71% of students are dealing with academic burnout. And the rates for scientists and faculty, they're right up there too. This is not just a few people having a tough week. For so many, this is the new normal.
So let's be really clear about what burnout is, because it is so much more than just feeling tired. It's a very specific psychological state. It's this deep, almost soul-crushing fatigue, mixed with a cynical attitude towards your own work, and this profound sense that you're not good enough, what we often call imposter syndrome.
And this isn't just a feeling. It has very real symptoms. We're talking about chronic fatigue that no amount of sleep can fix, a constant irritability. And maybe the most heartbreaking one, losing the passion for the very science that once lit you up. It even shows up physically, with things like tension headaches and insomnia.
And what you get is what some people have started calling the lab zombie. I think that's such a vivid term. It's someone who is physically there at the bench, but their creativity, their focus, their passion is just gone. They are completely mentally and emotionally checked out.
For Elena, just like for so many others, all this pressure eventually built up, and up, and up, until she hit a breaking point. Something just had to give.
A lot of the time, the person deep in burnout is the absolute last one to realize just how bad things have gotten. For Elena, that wake-up call actually came from the outside. Her mentor noticed her work was suffering and, this is so important, approached her with support, not criticism.
But even with that support, asking for help was absolutely terrifying. And this really gets to the heart of the cultural problem, right? The academic world praises this relentless drive, so admitting you're struggling can feel like you're admitting you're not cut out for it. It literally feels like it could be career suicide.
Thankfully, Elena did seek help. And this is where her story shifts from being this cautionary tale to a really hopeful guide, because there is a path back from burnout.
This recovery framework here gives a really clear, actionable plan. First, you have to set ruthless boundaries to protect your time and energy. Second, get back to the absolute basics: sleep, nutrition, just moving your body. Third, rebuild those social connections to fight the isolation. Fourth is huge. Reframe what success means to you and get help to challenge those imposter feelings. And finally, you have to be honest. If the environment is the problem, you might need to consider a change.
And the results of doing this work? They're profound. You can see the transformation right here. That cynicism and detachment, it turns into renewed curiosity. That nagging imposter syndrome gets replaced by a real sense of focus and meaning. And that constant crushing fatigue, it transforms into sustainable energy.
And look, this isn't just some nice theory. For Elena, this was her reality. 6 months after she started this deliberate recovery process, she was back to being a productive, creative scientist, but the huge difference was that this time, her work was driven by genuine passion, not by fear. Her well-being had returned, and right along with it, so had her creativity.
So, okay, what does Elena's journey teach us about the bigger picture here?
Well, it tells us that preventing burnout isn't just up to the individual to solve. It actually requires a fundamental shift in the entire culture of science itself.
This really has to be a shared responsibility. Yes, as individuals, we can work on setting boundaries and seeking help, but the institutions, the universities, the funding bodies, they hold the real power for systemic change. They've got to ease up on this publish or perish pressure, provide actual meaningful mental health support, and create a culture where taking a break isn't seen as a sign of weakness.
And that right there is the core message, the ultimate takeaway from all of this. It's so simple and so true. We can't expect to get groundbreaking science from people who are broken. If we want a healthy, innovative research community, we first have to make sure the humans within it are healthy and sustained.
So if any of this is resonating with you, if you're feeling that weight of the lab lights on your shoulders, please know that you are not alone, not even close. And more importantly, there is a way forward. It is not too late to make a change.
And that leaves us with this final massive question. And it's a question for everyone, for the principal investigators, for university administrators, for funding agencies, and for every single person working in a lab. How can we, together as a community, build a system of science that actually sustains the very people who make it all possible?